So we now have episode 20 of this 10th season of The Walking Dead. This episode is called Splinter, and if you don't want anything spoiled for you within this episode, do not watch this review because this review is going to contain full spoilers. You've been warned. This episode was our introduction to the Commonwealth. Of course, we saw them at the end of episode 16, but that was just a glimpse. This was our first proper introduction to the Commonwealth. Of course, we don't actually make it to the Commonwealth, but we get to see the soldiers, which was quite cool. And they're a lot more aggressive than I thought they would be. Like, just judging off the comics, like, now it's been, the comic ended 2 years ago in July, so it's probably been over 2 years, closer, it would have been exactly 2 years last month since I would have read this kind of story arc in the comic book series. But from memory, I don't remember them being this kind of dark and this kind of very much brutal people. Like, as soon as like Princess goes to run, Yumiko gets whacked in the I'm pretty sure it was the face with a rifle. So I was really taken back by how kind of aggressive this group was, because from the comic books I do not remember them being as aggressive as they were. Now, we do see, of course, Yumiko gets hit in the face, but we don't actually see Yumiko in this episode. We hear her voice, but that was quite it. I actually found out recently now that the reason she wasn't in this episode was because she was actually in England the whole time. She wasn't able to make it over. So, makes sense. As I was watching the episode, I thought it was a bit weird that we were just hearing her voice rather than seeing her face. But after hearing that, of course, it makes sense now. But after they kind of get hit in the face, Yumiko, and they all kind of get put into separate train carts, we all spend, for the majority of the episode, we're spending our time with Princess, who is not really being able to hack it inside, so she's starting to go a little bit mad, a little bit crazy, but she does find a little hole in the side of the train car where she's actually able to leave the train car. So she leaves it. She's planning on running away just to kind of get help, or just to see what is wrong with Yumiko, because Yumiko did get a head injury. She does want to see what actually happened to Yumiko. She gets out. Immediately, Eugene is telling her to get straight back in there because they need to trust these people and that she should not be running out. Of course, she does have a little bit of back and forth with Eugene. She decides, okay, it's probably best for me to go back in there. She does go back in there. Throughout the entire bit of the episode, though, she does have a Splinter that she kind of goes on about a good bit, where the episode comes from. She's in the train car. She's going a bit mad. People come in. They actually take her to be interviewed. The way the interview played out made sense within the world, but was also really weird. At first, they had to strip completely naked. Apparently, they get sprayed with a hose. I thought they just got naked to make sure there was no bite marks or anything at all throughout their body, but they get sprayed with the hose to, I don't know, freshen them up. Maybe I assume they smell, but like I wouldn't say they'd smell enough where they have to get sprayed with a hose. But then they have an interview. I'm assuming this is not Lance Hornsby, who is kind of the guy who would be in charge of all this kind of stuff from the comic book series. I'm assuming that is not him within this episode, because I thought maybe if it was him, we probably would have gotten a name drop. So just judging off that, I'm assuming that isn't Lance Hornsby as well. In the comics, Lance Hornsby looks like ridiculously like Negan. It's very weird how alike he looked like to Negan when he first showed up. I imagine they're not going to get someone like JDM, but I just never expect, like, this is not someone I imagined Lance Hornsby to look like, so I would be very shocked if that was him. I don't think that's him, but I would be shocked as well. In the comics, I don't remember him wearing the armor. I remember him just wearing his normal outfit, because the armor it's there to protect them, but it's more so people know that these are soldiers. So I wouldn't imagine Lance Hornsby wearing that armor. But of course, Yumiko isn't giving him the answers. He kind of gets a bit annoyed. He calls her a bitch, smacks her in the face, and then puts her back in the train car. And we're in the train car, and then Ezekiel comes down from the ceiling, and they're in there talking. And Ezekiel gets mad at Yumiko. Yumiko's saying, we can't leave our friends. And he goes, no, they're my friends, and we're not going anywhere. Because actually, no, Yumiko, or Princess was saying we should just leave, we'll get out of here, and Ezekiel's saying, no, we're not leaving, these are my friends, they are my friends, we're not leaving. Of course, Princess gets mad at that, which I kind of, you can look at it from both perspectives. Of course, they are his friends. He's known them for, well, Yumiko only, I say, a year, maybe a year and a half at most. But Eugene, he's been with Eugene for 6, 7, 8 years now at this stage. So you can understand why they're his friends when Princess literally just met them a week ago. She doesn't really know them, so it makes sense why she would just want to run away so sudden. But then someone does come in to give Princess her food, and Ezekiel goes ballistic at this guy, punching him in the face, just punching him, beating the absolute crap out of him. And I was quite taken back because, like, of course, Ezekiel is a guy who, of course, he did fight in All Out War. He did fight in the Whisperer War, but he's never been a guy who would just jump on people and fight them. He's more so a guy who would sit down and talk rather than immediately going into a fight. So I thought that was a bit odd straight away. And then immediately he starts shouting something like, no one's gonna lock me up," or "no one's gonna," whatever. It was something that really felt really weird for the character to be saying. But then it's immediately revealed that the entirety of this episode has been within Princess's head, and nothing that actually happened the way it happened. We see the train carrier. It's revealed that, of course, there was no hole in it. She imagined it. She actually never spoke to Eugene. That was all in her head. Ezekiel never made it in there. The guy, she was actually the one beating up this prisoner. So I thought that was all like, that was revealed, and I was like, oh wait, so that's the reveal. So everything that I'm after sitting through for the first half an hour of this episode didn't actually happen. So I found that to be really, really massively disappointing. But after she beats him up, she ties his hands up, she takes his gun, and she runs out of there, and then she has a conversation with Ezekiel, but it's actually not Ezekiel, it's in her head. She then decides to go back, gets the prisoner, or the soldier, lets him out, and then he gets the gun back, and then it's revealed that this whole thing has been a plan just to try and get information out of the princess. So now they know information from her, they know information from all of them, and they're all going to be making their way to the Commonwealth while they got bags on their head. But as a whole for this episode, it's easily one of the worst of season 10, if not one of the worst of the entire series. I was ridiculously bored throughout this episode. I don't know whose idea it was to have the introductory episode of the Commonwealth, which is if you haven't seen the comics, spoiler warning, but it's the final big bad of the comic book series, and have the introduction be with the princess, a character we only met, I'd say, 2 episodes ago. We've only spent, I'd say, a full episode with her, and then we get a whole introduction episode with her. Well, I'm not really attached to her. Even, like, I've got a figure over here from the comic book series, but even in the comic book series, I never loved her. I actually kind of found her very irritating in the comic books. So I think it was weird that the introductory episode was with her. I was kind of going into this episode expecting, okay, we'll see Princess in the train car, then we'll spend a little bit of time with Eugene, spend a little bit of time with Ezekiel, but for this episode, because the Yumiko, because of the Ezekiel, because of the Eugene scenes we get are all in her head, we don't actually get to see them at all in this episode. So that is just really, really weird that we go through the entirety of the episode with our 4 characters that we don't actually see them. And dream sequence episodes, it's kind of the kind of common thing that no one likes them, because what happens in them doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So we spend the entirety of the episode, which doesn't mean anything. None of it matters. None of it makes any sense, because none of it was progressing the story whatsoever. These 6 kind of new episodes, the 4 we've seen now, I really enjoyed the Aaron and the Aaron and Gabriel. Really enjoyed the Daryl and what's her name, Leah. Didn't enjoy the Maggie episode, but this episode is easily the worst, if not one of the worst of the series. Even bad episodes where people say Still is one of the worst episodes of all time. I haven't seen Still in a few years, but I remember not hating it to the extent, like, I've never really hated an episode of The Walking Dead. Even that one had Daryl, so it was fun to see that one. But this episode, I feel it has no redeeming qualities. Honestly, I checked my phone multiple times throughout this episode to see how long was left. I paused it so many times. I think I paused it for 10 minutes at one stage to go and get something to eat, which I've probably never done in the kind of grand scheme of watching The Walking Dead. I always loved The Walking Dead. I always sit there for the 40 to an hour long episodes, watching the entirety of the episode. But this episode was really, really hard to get through, and honestly, really disappointing. I kind of hope, everyone's going on now saying that these bonus episodes, they were a bonus. We shouldn't be expecting much, but I was expecting Walking Dead quality, and this episode was far from it. This is, would I say it's better? I actually don't know if I would rather watch this or one of the worst episodes of World Beyond, because if you see my reviews of World Beyond, I hated World Beyond, so I don't even know. I probably would rather watch this over the World Beyond, because it's, of course, the main show. We do get to see Ezekiel and Eugene, even if it isn't actually them. But for the most part, this is terrible episode, easily one of the worst of the entire series. I have no ambition of going back and watching this anytime soon. My girlfriend hasn't seen season 10 of The Walking Dead, so when the Blu-ray comes out, we will be watching the entirety of the series or of the season together. I'm not excited to rewatch this episode, but it's inevitable. I will be watching this episode again as well when the series wraps up. This is my favorite show of all time. I'm going to be watching this series all the time for the rest of my life, so I imagine this episode is going to be one I'm going to see a good few times. But honestly, this is a bad episode, but make sure to let me know your comments or your thoughts on this episode in the comment section down below. Do you agree with me? Is this a bad episode, or am I kind of being a little dramatic and this is one of the best? Which I might be kind of surprised if you think this is one of the best episodes. But let me know all that in the comment section down below. Are you excited for episode 21, which is going to be... Actually, I could probably go and watch it right now. So I'm going to go watch episode 21 right now. Let me know your thoughts on episode 20 in the comment section down below. Click on the subscribe button. And as always, thanks for watching.